Hey guys, what is up? This is Matthew Davis, me once again. Welcome back to another double movie review, aka After I Saw. I was going to make separate videos on these reviews, but I figured since I would be seeing two more movies, I feel like it would just be easier just to do separate reviews, even though one's for an anime film and one is for a non-anime film. So it's just whether or not I'm going to put it in my anime playlist. But anyways, first movie I'm going to talk about is Renfield. Now, Renfield stars Nicholas Hoult and Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage is Count Dracula, and Nicholas Hoult is pretty much the guy's like mentor or something, assistant, something like that. But of course, he wants to get out of the relationship that he has been having with him. And from there, once Nicolas Cage has rised and gained his full form back, of course, he is not too happy and then tends to make his life an absolute hell for him. And from there, we got ourselves a horror comedy film involving Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult, two great Nicholas actors, Nicolas Cage in particular, and of course, I expect him to be over the top, and for the majority of the movie, he is. And for the most part, I had myself a bloody good time with this one. This is certainly more on the comedy aspect than it is the flat-out horror aspect, because when it comes to the comedy, there is quite a bit of it. It's not a movie that takes itself insanely seriously. In fact, the movie kind of reminded me of like a comic book film, like a good vampire comic book film, like the one that we got last year. Anyways, when it comes to this movie, it mostly works as a comedy, but when it comes to the horror, it mostly works for the horror aspect, but of course you're going to laugh more than you are going to be scared because it's not necessarily a scary film. Now, Nicholas Hoult and Nicolas Cage are very good in the movie. I feel like they work very well together, even though they aren't on screen that much, because Nicolas Cage is far more of the bad guy, and Nicholas Hoult or Renfield isn't necessarily a bad guy that, well, he doesn't really tend to be, but he does have to kill people in order for Dracula to, of course, gain his power, but he gains powers himself in a different way, not by eating people, but eating bugs. I honestly feel like that's a little... I'm not sure which is grosser, eating humans or bugs. I guess humans, because that's cannibalism. The first act of the movie, I thought was the best part. I felt like there was a lot going for it in terms of Nicholas Hoult and Nicolas Cage's outstanding performances. They managed to bring in both the comedy and the horror at the same time, but when it comes to like the halfway point of the movie, it focuses a lot more on action, and it kind of makes it like feel a bit more like an action comedy than a horror comedy, because when Dracula's not on screen, Renfield's on screen with Awkwafina, and when it comes to this one part involving like taking down a lot of bad guys with guns, it really doesn't feel much like a horror comedy, and it didn't really ruin anything because it definitely picks back up when it gets towards the end of the film. But for me, I just feel like when it comes to aspects of that, it kind of just took away the whole horror comedy aspect. It honestly made it feel a bit like John Wick, and I'm not even exaggerating. But the movie still manages to be a lot of fun. It's not insanely long, though. I feel like they did have kind of a missed opportunity to make it slightly longer, because it's only an hour and a half long. There are times in the movie where I feel like there are parts that were supposed to be there but just aren't. But nonetheless, guys, I had a really fun time with Renfield. It's a bloody good time, and if you like bloody fun, then chances are you're going to have a bloody fun time with this one. It's certainly got its problems, but for the most part, in terms of it being a horror comedy, I'm glad that we still get films like this. And chances are that Evil Dead Rise will be better than this, but in the meantime, this is a good watch in order to wait for that film, which I'm sure that film is going to be a lot of fun. This one is fun enough, and that's all it really needed to be. Now, for the next movie I'm going to review is Suzume. Now, Suzume comes to us from the director of Your Name, which I think is one of the best anime films of all time, and Weathering with You, which I didn't think was quite as good, but I still think was absolutely fantastic. We follow a young girl named Suzume who meets up with a young man who gets transformed into a chair by a cat. And from there, he is supposed to be closing doors in order for this like worm thing to stay in the doors. And Suzume has a past with her mother. She's been living with her aunt, And from there, she goes on this journey with the one guy. I forgot what his name was. It was like Xiaoto or something. And from there, they have to try and find this cat and try to close all the doors in order for the world to be a happy place. I didn't really know a whole lot going into this movie. I didn't know what the full storyline was going to be about. All that I know is that it's an anime film, and I like anime films. And this one was outstanding, okay? I knew this movie was going to be good. Hell, I knew this movie was going to be great, and it definitely pleased me. Of course, when it comes to the director's work, I feel like this is by far his most gorgeous work yet. Like, there are so many moments when they're trying to, like, close the doors, and there's, like, a lot of, like, sequences that are, like, very tense, and they manage to get very insane. Like, there is quite a bit. I wouldn't necessarily say action sequences because this isn't an action, it's a drama. One that we've seen in most anime before, but this one I feel like works very well. And though the fact that the main like man of the movie, throughout most of the movie, he's just a chair, there is actually a reason why he was formed into a chair. Apparently, Suzume's chair is actually very important to her, and if I explain more, you know where that's going to lead to. But I couldn't recommend this movie enough. The movie has a very deep story. I think Suzume is a really great protagonist. I think she works very well with Xiaoto, or I'm going to have to look at what his name is. And, of course, I mentioned this before, there is a cat in the movie, a talking cat who sort of seems like the villain at first, but later down the line, there's a reason why he turned the guy into a chair and why they're chasing after. It's a long story, but you have to watch the movie for yourself. It's 2 hours of eye candy in terms of its animation. I feel like the director, Makoto Shinkai, I think that's what his last name was. I can correct it in the screen. I feel like he's gone all out with this one in terms of its animation style. It is gorgeous with mixtures of both regular traditional animation and 3D style. It looks absolutely outstanding. And its storyline really works here, though I kind of noticed that there are some similarities to his other film. Like, there's this one scene involving McDonald's, and if you saw Weathering With You, you'll know that there was also a scene in that film involving McDonald's. And there are also some times where it kind of just played out like a mixture of Your Name and Weathering With You. Like, there are scenes where characters are falling from the sky, and there are bits involving, like, the sky with the stars and stuff, and, of course, the chemistry between this man and woman. So, I feel like he's got a unique trademark, and it definitely is a bit more different than his other films, though. And I'm not saying that it's a complete, copy of his other previous films, but I feel like it's just something that just makes the director unique. But the layouts are so good, and he manages to combine great storylines with some really interesting characters. And even though he hasn't made that many movies, I'm so glad he managed to make another one after the success of his previous two films. And there's no doubt in my mind that this is going to become a cult film, just like with his previous two films. And hopefully it will make a good amount of money, since his previous two films did make quite a bit in terms of, a Japanese standpoint. And in the end, guys, Suzume is another work of art from this masterful director in terms of its animation style, to its really unique story, to its layouts, to its really fantastic soundtrack, and its very likable characters. It's a 2-hour animation ride that I enjoyed my time with, though I kind of liked the first act a little bit more than the second act, but the second act was still really good too. Bottom line, Suzume is another work of art from this director. Now, I am going to try to see the Pope's Exorcist, excuse me. I'm not quite sure about Mafia Mama, though, because I've heard nothing but really bad things about that one. But I'm just going to try. I know I am going to do, if I do see them, it will be another double movie review. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Word out.